Hey everyone, it's Keith. Welcome back to Throwback Movie Mondays. It's the season finale, I guess. I don't know. Today we're talking about the movie that made me want to start this series, from 1989, Batman. Batman is directed by Tim Burton and stars Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton, and Kim Basinger. I'm not going to do a log line for the plot of the movie because it's pretty simple. It can be boiled down to 4 words: Batman versus the Joker. Truly, the only place to begin a discussion about this film is with the person most responsible for it, Michael Uslan. A lifelong Batman fan turned comic book writer, he bought the film rights to the character with the help of financier Benjamin Melniker in the late 1970s, and then shopped them around Hollywood, being turned down by numerous movie studios including Columbia Pictures and United Artists. Mind you, this was post-Superman the movie, which was a huge success. Frustrated, Uslan wrote his own script, which portrayed the character as a dark, serious detective, which he felt was how Batman's creators, Bob Kane and Bill Finger, originally envisioned him. Still, not much interest. CBS and Paramount considered making Batman in Space, a comedy in the vein of the Adam West TV show, whose script, if one exists, I would frankly love to read. Uslan also met with Ghostbusters director Ivan Reitman, who wanted to cast Bill Murray as the Dark Knight, and either Eddie Murphy or Michael J. Fox as Robin. Hollywood was being stupid. Uslan saw what now might seem obvious. In a world where there is a sincere, faithful film adaptation for Superman that was the biggest movie of 1978, remember, the next logical step would be to attempt the same for Batman. The film eventually landed at Warner Brothers, the very studio that licensed the character out to Uslan and Melniker in the first place. And side note, the deal they signed with WB must have been airtight, because it stands to this day. Benjamin Melniker died in 2018, but he was listed as an executive producer on every Batman-related film released up until then, and Uslan continues to be credited to this day. As hesitant as they were at first, Warner Brothers, to their credit, did put a lot of resources into making Batman happen. The film had a pretty substantial, for the time, $35 million budget, and up-and-coming director Tim Burton was attached to the film. Batman was only his 3rd movie, but his first 2, Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Beetlejuice, were both successful, and WB clearly had a lot of faith in the young artist. For the cast, WB employed a trick they'd had some success with on Superman the movie, casting a veteran actor in a supporting role in order to give the film credibility. This time, Jack Nicholson was cast as the villain, the Joker. Nicholson could have easily phoned in the performance, but he doesn't. He clearly cared about the part, having been a fan of comic books and of the Joker in particular. Nicholson, without question, gives the best performance in the film, full of bravado and menace, and while it may or may not be his best role, I mean, what a huge career he's had, it's probably his most iconic. It's either this or The Shining, right? But come on, it's the Joker. Everyone that plays this role is kind of immediately iconic in it. Except for Jared Leto, I guess. For the title role, Warner Brothers, of course, wanted an established action star. Tom Selleck, Mel Gibson, and Kevin Costner were considered. And Burton even met with future Bond star Pierce Brosnan, who flat out turned down the role. Brosnan said years later, quote, "I just couldn't take it seriously. Any man who wears his underpants outside his pants just cannot be taken seriously. That was my foolish take on it. It was a joke, I thought. But how wrong was I?" End quote. Burton's choice for the role was his Beetlejuice actor, Michael Keaton. Keaton initially rejected the role, but accepted it after reading the script. He said he had one central idea for the character, that Bruce Wayne was insane. Burton loved it. Upon Keaton's casting, there was an uproar of criticism from fans who felt casting Mr. Mom as the Caped Crusader was the wrong choice, and that the WB was, as mentioned in an article from the Wall Street Journal, quote, "after the money of all the people who only remember Batman as a buffoon with a twerp for a sidekick in the campy TV series from the 60s, end quote. Fears were at least somewhat quelled when the first publicity photos of Keaton and Nicholson in costume were revealed, showing that this was quite a departure from the Adam West show. And Keaton is great. He's moody and mysterious, and of course, them lips. Nowadays, there's much debate online about who was the best movie Batman. They all seem to have their fans, except for maybe George Clooney, but Keaton is often at the top of these discussions. I think that's because he holds a lot back. You're never quite sure what to make of him. And if you're unfamiliar with Batman's origins, the reveal of his parents' murder late in the movie allow you to finally start putting the puzzle of Keaton's Bruce Wayne together. In other words, the movie and Keaton's portrayal respect the audience enough to allow you to become invested in this person who at first you might not understand. Rounding out the cast are Kim Basinger as love interest Vicky Vale, Robert Wool as reporter Alexander Knox, Michael Goff as Wayne's butler Alfred, and Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon. They're all solid enough, but the movie, to be honest, doesn't really care about any of them, the exception to that being Basinger's Vicky Vale, who is given the most screen time of the supporting cast, but especially in the back half of the film, she mostly becomes a MacGuffin for Batman and the Joker to fight over. The look of Gotham City, and really the film overall, is thanks to production designer Anton Furst, who, by all accounts from his co-workers, was a genius. The goal of his designs was to not make it look like it's set in any specific period, to have influence from German architecture, Art Deco, and early 1980s New York, which had the look of a city built inside of an asshole. The Batsuit was a step away from the classic gray bodysuit seen in the comics, a decision made by Burton, who said leotards, quote, are ridiculous, end quote. The cape was made purposefully heavy, so Batman looked more intimidating. It was also given a leather texture in order to have the look of bat skin. There were tests done without the black makeup around Keaton's eyes, but it was said to have looked strange, and makeup made it look more seamless. Keaton's experience wearing the costume was rough. It was heavy, he couldn't hear well, his vision was limited, and of course, the head couldn't turn. A problem that still plagues Batman productions to this day, so maybe it's more complicated than it seems like it should be. The one thing Keaton and his stuntmen did seem to enjoy about the suit was the footwear, which was designed by Nike. I don't have a lot to say about the Batmobile in the film, other than I love it and I want to be inside of it. Like driving. It was primarily designed by Anton Furst and art director Terry Ackland Snow, and it is a classic. 30 years on, it remains a favorite among Bat fans as well. Anton Furst and Peter Young would go on to win Oscars for the film for Best Art Direction, and they are more than well deserved. Really, no matter where you look in Batman, there's outstanding design work. I've just touched upon a couple of things here. Danny Elfman's score is unbelievable. It's my favorite score of all time. I mean, I own the goddamn thing on vinyl. It's Elfman's third collaboration with Burton, a relationship that would continue for decades. Elfman has only not scored a handful of his films. WB initially wanted a pop soundtrack filled with original songs by two of the biggest pop stars of the decade, Prince and Michael Jackson. Burton flat out refused this concept, saying his movies are not commercial. For inspiration, Elfman walked around the Gotham City set at night, soaking in the atmosphere. For Batman's theme, he wanted to compose a mysterious, at times fun piece that had a driving heroism. Producers loved Elfman's score so much that they released an album of it, which at the time was rare, and it was a huge hit. Prince, meanwhile, did contribute music to the film. And he didn't just write a song or two, he made a Batman album. Seriously, it's officially his 11th studio album, and that is beyond weird. It does make a little more sense when you consider that Prince's album for the film Purple Rain, 5 years before, was massive, coupled with his Batman album being recorded a mere 3 to 4 months before the film's release, by which time WB was going all in on a media blitz supporting it. Which brings us to the poster. Good God, look at that thing. It's simple, it's elegant, that little gleam of light is just... They say Batman is one of the most recognizable characters in the world, but something like 98% of people know that symbol. So to put just that on a poster is brilliant. Batman was released on June 23rd, 1989, to mostly favorable reviews, and was a huge success. It broke several box office records right out of the gate, and was the fastest movie to reach $100 million, doing so in just 11 days. It was nothing short of a cultural phenomenon, and in the wake of the film's success, guess what? That's right, Hollywood took all the wrong lessons from the film and spent the next decade not learning any better. There were rip-offs. Hey, Batman's an old comic hero from the 1930s. Dick Tracy, The Shadow, The Phantom, which, by the way, has the best worst tagline ever. Slam evil. The entire decade of the 1990s are riddled with comic book movies that simply wouldn't have been made if Batman had failed. From Judge Dredd and Spawn to The Crow, and eventually even the film that would reignite the genre for the next century, 2000's X-Men, all owe their very existence to Tim Burton's film. Believe it or not, there's a weird connection to the Marvel Cinematic Universe too. As part of the merchandise for the film, Canadian toy company Toy Biz provided a very profitable series of action figures, vehicles, and playsets. This elevated the company to new heights, and they had a very successful 1990s, making toys for X-Men and Xena and Hercules. And it culminated with Toy Biz buying Marvel Comics in 1998, saving the comics titan from bankruptcy, and allowing them to go on to define the 21st century in film. It's crazy, right? On the bad side of things, the film spawned 3 sequels, which, God help me, I hope I never talk about at length on here. I really don't like any of them. Though when I was 9, I would have told you that Batman Forever was a masterpiece. There was also an animated series that continues to define the character for many fans to this day, itself having many offspring. And of course, the aforementioned merchandise. Toys and lunchboxes and video games and theme park rides and all sorts of other things that I wish I'd held on to from when I was a kid. You really couldn't escape Batman in the summer of 1989. For me, it's the second movie I ever remember loving, the first being The Empire Strikes Back. I saw the movie after it hit HBO, and my mom taped it off of there for me, and I literally watched it so many times over the years that tape broke. Luckily, by then I was old enough to be able to repair it with Scotch tape so I could keep on watching. And I still have that VHS too, as a relic of my childhood. I don't even think I have a VCR anymore, but I have it on DVD and digital HD now anyway. But this guy right here, he was a good friend. As you might guess, it's hard for me to step away from my nostalgia for Batman. Harder than it is for just about anything. So yeah, take what I say with a grain of salt, I guess. That's fine. If I'm being honest, the other 2 films Burton made in the 1980s are probably both better. The one he made after Batman, Edward Scissorhands, most certainly is. In all honesty, I don't have a lot of problems with the film, really. It's not super faithful to the comic. For example, Joker didn't kill Batman's parents, and Batman's a little too comfortable with killing people for my liking. That's a problem that was compounded in the sequel. But I'm mostly willing to overlook that. Burton's directing, particularly in the action scenes, can be a little static, but after all, this was quite a change of pace for him. Not only was it his first action movie, it was his first non-comedy, and just his 3rd movie overall. As I've said before, I've loved this movie from a young age, and it's always held up for me every time I've revisited it. This movie rules, and while some may dismiss it, saying it's just a popcorn action movie, I say nay. It is culturally important. I'll go so far as to say it should be in the National Film Registry. Purple Rain is in there, so is Jurassic Park. Goddamn Die Hard is in there. So why not Batman? Anyway, Batman gets an 8 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think of Batman in the comments. And also, who's your favorite Batman actor? Mine is Kevin Conroy from the animated series. If you want to see the previous entries in the Throwback Movie Mondays series, there will be links in the description for each of the videos. Feel free to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.